Live 105. KITS, San Francisco.
Rock, 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 rock and roll queer bar.
It's Hibernia Beach.
The queerest corner in the world.
Issues and entertainment from the lesbian, gay, bisexual perspective.
Now, live on Live 105, your hosts Ken MacPherson and Val Keenan.
Good morning, Bay Area. Hi, I'm Ken MacPherson.
And I'm Val Keenan.
And this is a very special one-hour edition of Hibernia Beach as we present America's first live broadcast of a gay and lesbian wedding.
Our special guests this morning are Reverend Jim Mitulaski of the Metropolitan Community Church, Audry Covner, who will be saying her vows to Diane Doherty, and Lloyd, Burton, and Michael Berry are also here, and they will be sharing their vows with us this morning. Live 105's Harry O will be joining us later this hour, and this morning we have a live studio audience.
Look out, Alex Bennett, look out. And thanks for joining us on this very special Valentine's Day edition of our program.
Whew.
Well. We've got so much going on. Why don't you grab a chair, Val,
Okay.
make yourself comfortable, sit
Alrighty.
down.
There's just so much energy in this room right now.
Yeah.
Being up since 4 o'clock this morning is...
Actually, and up since 2 o'clock last night, we've been decorating. We can't get away without decorating, can we? Well, there's reasons. There's many, many reasons why we're doing a wedding here on Hibernia Beach today. And we think most of you out there who are listening, who live in the Bay Area, have heard about a lot of those reasons over the past years.
That's right.
As one of the people at the recent Life meeting in Los Angeles put it, our families are families.
Yes.
And that's what we're here
right.
to talk about today. The first section of the show, we're going to be talking with Audry Covner. Good morning, Audry.
Hi, Audrey.
Are you awake, Audrey?
I'm awake.
That adrenaline is flowing.
Now, see, Audry and Diane are really the martyrs of the show because they had to trek on up from the peninsula, which meant...
Yeah, we got up at 4:30. The dog didn't want to get up. That was the problem.
Got it.
The dog's sleeping now, too.
And amongst the many roles that Audry plays in her service to our community is as state co-chair of LIFE, the Lobby for Individual Freedom and Equality. Audry, what is LIFE? What is LIFE, Audrey?
Well, I've been trying to find the meaning. Now,
Yeah.
LIFE is a statewide gay and lesbian and AIDS HIV lobbying organization.
Mm-hmm.
We've been in existence since 1986, and we're the organization that got California its anti-discrimination statute almost 2 years ago now.
Seems like ancient history. Remember, once upon a time, Art Agnos and AB won, and then the governor didn't like that very much. Or that didn't even get passed,
Yes,
did
it did, but
Oh, it
that
did?
was
That was a Duke-Majan veto?
That was a Duke-Majan veto.
And then it reincarnated as AB 101.
Right, and that was a Wilson veto.
And
Everybody's had an opportunity to veto.
That's right. And we all remember what happened when that veto came through downtown here in San Francisco. And that was followed by AB 2601. And
that actually got signed. We were not going to sit back after the veto of
That's
AB
right.
101. We went back to the governor with a new version, and we got it signed.
well, first, before we make the announcement that we're kind of here to make in addition to doing this wedding here today, which we believe to be the first in America of a live broadcast of a gay and lesbian wedding, 2 couples we've got going here. Let's talk about the state of the art, as it were, with gay relationships. We're going to be talking a little later with Reverend Jim Mitulaski from his perspective, but first let's start off from that political side. We in San Francisco have a domestic partners regulation. I think Berkeley, do they have one also?
Berkeley has one. Actually, there's, I think, about 10 cities and counties across the state of California. Plus, there's a number of them across the country, cities and towns that have ordinances.
But so far it's just individual cities.
Cities and counties, correct.
And in fact, to some degree, those regulations are being challenged because of a Supreme Court ruling that says state law may supersede local regulations.
That's right. There is a state law. They're not actually challenging the domestic partner ordinances. They're challenging some other ordinances, but the principles are applicable, and that is that there are some state laws that talk about discrimination, and some of the courts, there's been a court in Southern California that said, well, we've got a state law, so that means any ordinance you enacted is, any local ordinance is not going to be valid. So that's risky to any kind of local ordinance,
Right.
including domestic partner ordinances.
So far in the state, if you happen to be lucky enough to live in a handful of cities, what is it you get exactly? What is domestic partners?
Well, it depends on what city you live in.
That's right.
What domestic partnership is basically a relationship. It's a legal definition of a relationship. And it says, here, if you meet these criteria, then you are a domestic partner. Once you meet the criteria, then you get something for that.
What do we get? What do we get? What do we get?
Depends on where you are. Some places give you health benefits. Some places give you dental benefits.
Yeah.
Some places give you, like, for example, bereavement leave from the employment setting. Some places give you full employee benefits. Some places give you hospital visitation rights. It just depends on where you are.
And something that actually is exciting, while there are some things that we get as a result of signing up for a domestic partner by regulation, there are a whole group of corporations who have started to say, if you have that document, no one's forcing us to, but we'll give you our insurance plan, or we'll treat you in effect as we treat other, quote, married, end quote, couples.
All right, people are using it, and that I think what you're referring to is in the employment setting. People are going to their
Absolutely.
employers and say, here I am, a domestic partner. People are using it in other places. I've heard of people who said they went to a department store and said, look, I have a domestic partnership sign up here, and I want joint credit with this other person. I mean, there's no legal obligation for these department stores to do that, but people are using it as just a mechanism to get recognition.
Lotus, Apple, who are some of the others?
We have Ben & Jerry's.
Yeah, ice cream folk.
yeah.
Applause, come on. Applause. Yeah!
We love that chunky monkey, right?
That's right.
Levi Strauss.
Yay, Levi.
Of course,
They were good on
already
the Boy
mentioned-
Scout stuff, too. Yay, Levi.
There are a number of corporations, and there are a number of law firms in the city as well that have adopted domestic partnership.
And in fact, this is exactly what got Apple in trouble in Texas last month.
That's correct. But Apple stood up for themselves. I mean, Apple said,
Jeez,
that's,
what a change.
we have a domestic partnership rule, and if you guys don't like it, then that's a problem.
And does anybody know of any other corporation who actually, when challenged, has stood up for us? I mean, on the Boy Scout thing, we had Levi Strauss, and we had Bank of America. Be gentle with that. But Bank of America found intense pressure, and while they have never, I must say, most people don't know this, Bank of America has never given a penny to the Boy Scouts since then. But to take care of some of their public posturing, they technically reneged on it and said, well, we will, or we can, if we want, donate to the Boy Scouts, but have not since then. It's exciting to see the possibility for change, and as we move forward here in California, and that's what Life Lobby is all about doing, moving us forward. Well, let's go back one step, because in 13 states across this country, what's going on? Leading question. Do you have to love how I set that up?
I think I know the answer. Let me see if I can figure it out.
Let's see, Ken.
13 states.
It sounds like.
Well, what's going on is that the right wing is putting initiatives on ballots in 13 states to basically take away the rights of gays and lesbians if they have ordinances, to reject those ordinances, or to say that they cannot enact ordinances to protect gays and lesbians.
Let's underline that. In 13 states in the United States, there are initiatives people are voting on to strip us of our basic civil rights.
Well, and it's very close to happening in California, and I think a lot of people don't realize that. And
that's what I was leading to, because we sit here all in California, and we've got domestic partners, and we have power at City Hall, and Frank Jordan better watch out. But the reality is that we now have term limits in the state of California. And we have a whole new crop of politicians coming in, and that's one of the things that Life works with. And you know something? Let me get this in here, because I keep talking about Life. I am state co-chair, civil rights policy for Life, so this is part of what I have to deal with too. We don't know where a lot of these people stand, do we?
Well, no, we know where a lot of them stand.
Thank you.
That's unfortunate.
That's the scary part.
Yeah, we
Well,
know.
okay, let's do that side of the equation. What you're referring to is the success of the radical right, or Reich, as Lori McBride puts it, in the state of California for being elected to office. What's going on that level?
Well, we now have a lot more legislators in the state legislature than we've ever had that are very much fundamentalist right wings, and we see more coming in. And it's very scary, because in the past, even if we get hopefully, a Democratic governor in the future, we still have to get things through the legislature. And if we don't have enough votes in the legislature, we'll never get it to our Democratic governor.
Now, that's the Republican right-wing side of the equation. The Republican moderates are being frightened off on all of our issues. Let's see what happened to our friend Bill Clinton on gay in the military. If he is frightened away, well, it's needless to say that the, quote, moderate Republicans are going to do the same. But we've got all these new Democrat puppies coming on in, too. And we don't really know what they're going to do on our issues, do we?
No, we don't. But we are trying to, during the election period and even after, we try to go to them and talk with them and educate them about our issues and sort of make them aware. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. When Governor Wilson was running for governor against Diane Feinstein, we went to both of them to talk about AB 101. In other words, if we put a piece of legislation in front of you on employment discrimination, are you going to sign it? And although nobody's going to absolutely commit, we got strong support. And so we were all pretty surprised when we got a veto. Okay, drum roll. Audrey, one of the reasons that we're here doing the wedding today, one of the reasons that we're going to be at City Hall tomorrow morning making participating in a simultaneous press conferences that are going on in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and San Diego, drum roll, is, whoops, sorry microphone, what's going to happen tomorrow, Audrey? Am I allowed to let the secret out?
Yeah, I got okayed over the
No,
weekend.
I know.
We have to go for the clearance on these things, folks.
Yes, top security.
That's right.
We are going to be submitting a bill tomorrow to the state legislature, which will enact domestic partnership.
On a
statewide level.
basis.
Yes.
Yes.
It's about time.
That's right. Okay, do people understand the significance of this? What we're saying is, for the first time in America, the gay community in one state, California, is actually going to go for domestic partner anywhere in the state of California.
Anywhere in the country. I mean, there's no other state in this country that has statewide domestic partnership.
Sure, exactly. There are a number of things that are really exciting about this. First of all, it's one thing for us San Francisco folk to, on Valentine's Day, go down to City Hall in tuxedos and march down staircases and register with great aplomb at the city registrar's office. But let's face it, there are a lot of people across the state of California who live in itty-bitty little towns that aren't going to be so comfortable about walking into their city hall and standing next to their loved person to say, I do.
That's right.
What's going to happen with this?
Remember I said earlier that what a domestic partnership does is it's sort of two stages. One is you set out the definition, and the second is what do you get once you meet those. And in the definition, that we're creating for the state, you go down and you register at the Secretary of State's office or the county clerk's office, depending on how we work that out. But it's through the Secretary of State. And then once you get that, once we say and you meet that definition, then we've created in this bill 3 rights that people would get. And one is the right to be able to visit your loved one in the hospital and not be afraid of being able to be kicked out. The other is to be able to, should your domestic partner become incapacitated, that you would have the right to be considered to become a conservator through a court process. And the third is...
Find your press release, quick.
Totally lost myself here.
It's on... It's on...
Oh, the third is to be included. I just wrote this the other day. Cool. The third is to be included as a listing status on what is known as the statutory short form will. In California, you can basically go to the stationery store and buy a form will that you can fill out, and it's perfectly legal and valid. And if it says things like it's a check the box, and it says things like I choose to leave everything to my spouse or my children, and this would add in a box for domestic partners.
Well, Audrey, we're going to move into the next section of the show now. We're going to get back and discuss again with Audrey some more about domestic partners near the end of the show. Harry O's coming on this morning, isn't he, Val?
He sure is. He'll be in a little later after the half hour. Yeah. You're listening to Hibernia Beach on Live 105. When we come back, we'll be live with our gay and lesbian wedding ceremony, and we'll introduce Reverend Jim Mitulaski from the Metropolitan Community Church. We'll be right back on Live 105.
On the next, Alex Bennett.
9 Van Ness Avenue and Eddy in San Francisco.
This is Hibernia Beach. Issues and entertainment from the gay, lesbian, bisexual perspective. Thanks for joining us for this special 1-hour edition as we present America's first live radio broadcast of a gay and lesbian wedding.
Hello, it's Ken MacPherson again.
And I'm Val Keenan. Welcome again to Hibernia Beach.
We're saying it's the first ever wedding. Do we really know that?
Well,
Is it?
we think that it is.
It is. No one
We
else
think
has
that.
called us on the phone to say there's been another one. I say it is.
It is, it is.
Cool.
You're listening to Live 105 in Hibernia Beach, and I am joined now by Reverend Jim Mitulaski of the Metropolitan Community Church. Jim, what is MCC?
Metropolitan Community Church is a 25-year-old church here in San Francisco that was started by gay and lesbian people to be a church for gay and lesbian people, a spiritual home where in our own environment we can reclaim the religious tradition that has so long oppressed not only us but many people. We're really re-imaging Christianity in particular and all kinds of spiritualities so that we have a place where we can affirm ourselves, celebrate our lives the way we actually live. We're challenging any kind of spirituality that is used as a mask for people's prejudices. You know, people often use religion, particularly Christianity, as a way to just justify their prejudices, and we're tired of that. We're claiming back spirituality as a way to liberate all people.
Terrific. About how many members do you have in your...
We have 400 members, and we're located in the Castro District, 150 Eureka Street. We worship every Sunday at 9 a.m., 11 a.m., and 7 p.m., and we're one of 2 spiritual institutions in the Castro like us. There's also Congregation Shahar Zahav, a Reform synagogue for Jewish congregants at 220 Danvers and Caselli, and they worship every Friday at 8:15 p.m. It's very important for gay and lesbian people to have our own religious institutions. We can't give these things back to people who will use it to oppress us.
Absolutely. We create it, and it's more empowering than ever. Why are weddings like the ones we're going to do today, why are those important to the gay and lesbian community, Jim?
Well, these weddings, I think, are an important statement about our relationships and about our intentions about them. Ritual is very powerful, and if we have any doubt about how powerful these weddings are, just measure the extent to which it works the nerves of the religious people in this city and this state.
That's right.
When domestic partners legislation was passed in San Francisco, it was the Roman Catholic Church and the evangelical Protestant churches that went off the wall because they couldn't stand that we would affirm our relationships and say we won't stay in the place that you've assigned to us. So we know how powerful they are. We know, and our opponents know, that there is a power to this about standing up in public and saying, this is the person I love, this is the person I want to spend my time with, and this is the person that I'm committed to no matter what.
Right.
And so these weddings provide an opportunity for couples to intentionally articulate their love for each other. They create a place where people can come and support them, and they create a community of accountability in many ways, family for us, where we are not only have people celebrating with us, but reminding us of the promises that we make. Gay and lesbian couples need a community of support, a community of affirmation, a community of accountability. And these weddings give us a chance to intentionally say, this is how I want to be, this is who I love. And for religious people particularly, we believe that our relationships are a gift to us from God, that gay and lesbian relationships are one way that God expresses pleasure and delight in human creation and the diversity of it.
Terrific, terrific, terrific.
When I was in seminary, they told me, in a heterosexual seminary, they said, most of the weddings you do, and they were thinking of mixed-sex couples, will be just to please the parents, just a social thing.
Yes.
And I can honestly say I have never done a gay or lesbian wedding just to please the parents. People don't do these weddings because of the prestige. They don't do them because of the affirmation they get necessarily from the dominant culture, or even sometimes within our own community. They do these ceremonies because they feel it, and it means something. It's not something you go through. It's not just empty words. When a gay and lesbian couple says the traditional vows that we'll use shortly, something happens. They come alive. And I've seen how I do many weddings, probably 100 a year, at Metropolitan Community Church.
I was just going to ask you that.
And often heterosexual people who are at the weddings will come up afterwards and say, you know, they used the same words at the wedding I was at, but it didn't have the same level of meaning. And they are moved to tears by what it evokes in them.
It's wonderful. Thank you, Jim. I'm glad you could be here today, and I'm glad that our couples are here today. Could I have the couples step to the mic? And I think, Jim, I'm going to turn it over to you and the audience.
Okay. We're very excited about this opportunity to celebrate with Audry and Diane, with Lloyd and Michael, the gift that God has given them of their relationship. And what I want to say to those of you who are here with them, their friends here in the studio, and to those who are listening, that you are not just observing this, you're not watching this, you're not just listening to it. You who are friends are promising to stand by them, to support them, and uphold them in their love for each other. You're celebrating with them on this day, but you're also saying, we'll remind you of these promises in the future. They need your support, and I pray for all of you who are here that it's a blessing for you. I want to start by using these words from the book of Ruth in the Hebrew Scriptures, words that were originally spoken by one woman to another woman that articulate the commitment that we celebrate this day. Ruth says to Naomi, "Entreat me not to leave you or to return from following you, for where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. May God do so to me and more also, even if death parts me from you." And so we celebrate the love of these two couples, two men, one for another, two women, one for another. And I've asked them each to make a statement about their love for each other, why this person, why this commitment. And so first, Michael and Lloyd.
Well, Michael, I love you because you're honest, because you're compassionate, because you're trustworthy, because you're caring. And I've picked you as my partner in my life because I know that you'll always be there to support me whenever I need you, to be there to love me and to care for me in any kind of situation. And it's just wonderful to have you part of my life.
Thank you. Lloyd, I love and accept and celebrate all of who you are. The soft, gentle heart, the wonderful, playful pest in you that drives me crazy sometimes. The ways that you've made me become neat in my cluttered life. But most of all, I love you for who you are and the joy that you give me and the fact that I feel completely safe and can trust you, and I commit my life to you.
Audrey and Diane.
Diane, I love you very much, and I love you for the past 10 years that we've shared together. We've been through a lot of ups and downs through those years, and I appreciate the fact that you've been there for me, and you're my best friend, and that's the most important thing to me.
And Audrey, I feel that ever since we first met 10 years ago in law school, that we were really meant to be together, and I celebrate that, and I celebrate the fact that we are so good together.
We're very excited about this chance for you to recommit the love that has gone on for 10 years with Audrey and Diane and 4 years for Lloyd and Michael today. And so I ask first Audrey and Diane to face each other and to repeat after me, first Audrey to Diane. I, Audrey, take you, Diane, to be my companion.
I, Audrey, take you, Diane, to be my companion.
To have and to hold from this day forward.
To have and to hold from this day forward.
For better, for worse.
For better, for worse.
For richer, for poor.
For richer, for poorer.
In sickness and in health.
In sickness and in health.
To love and to cherish.
To love and to cherish.
Until we are parted by death.
Until we are parted by death.
This is my solemn vow.
This is my solemn vow.
And then Diane to Audrey. I, Diane, take you, Audrey, to be my companion.
I, Diane, take you, Audrey, to be my companion.
To have and to hold from this day forward.
To have and to hold from this day forward.
For better, for worse.
For better, for worse.
For richer, for poorer.
For richer, for poorer.
In sickness and in health.
In sickness and in health.
To love and to cherish.
To love and to cherish.
Until we are parted by death.
Until we are parted by death.
This is my solemn vow.
This is my solemn vow.
And do we have their rings? If you would place, Audrey, the ring on Diane's finger and say, I give you this ring.
I give you this ring.
As a symbol of my vow.
As a symbol of my vow.
With all that I am.
With all that I am.
And all that I have.
And all that I have.
I honor you.
I honor you.
And Diane to Audrey. I give you this ring.
I give you this ring.
As a symbol of my vow.
As a symbol of my vow.
With all that I am.
With all that I am.
And all that I have.
And all that I have.
I honor you.
I honor you.
And now Michael and Lloyd facing each other. I, Michael, take you, Lloyd, to be my companion.
I, Michael, take you, Lloyd, to be my companion.
To have and to hold from this day forward.
To have and to hold from this day forward.
For better, for worse.
For better, for worse.
For richer, for poor.
For richer, for poorer.
In sickness and in health.
In sickness and in health.
To love and to cherish.
To love and to cherish.
Until we are parted by death.
Until we are parted by death.
This is my solemn vow.
This is my solemn vow.
And Lloyd to Michael. I, Lloyd, take you, Michael, to be my companion.
I, Lloyd, take Michael to be my companion.
To have and to hold from this day forward.
To have and to hold from this day forward.
For better, for worse.
For better and for worse.
For richer, for poor.
For richer and for poor.
In sickness and in health.
In sickness and in health.
To love and to cherish.
To love and to cherish.
Until we are parted by death.
Until we are parted by death.
This is my solemn vow.
This is my solemn vow.
And your rings. Michael, to Lloyd, I give you this ring.
I give you this ring
as a symbol of my vow.
As a symbol of my vow.
With all that I am.
With all that I am.
And all that I have.
And all that I have.
I honor you.
I honor you.
And Lloyd to Michael. I give you this ring.
I give you this ring.
As a symbol of my vow.
As a symbol of my vow.
With all that I am.
With all that I am.
And all that I have.
And all that I have.
I honor you.
I honor you.
And now will all of you here witnessing, Lloyd and Michael, Diane and Audrey in their promises, do all in your power to uphold them in their marriage? If so, say, we will.
We will.
Okay. Now, facing each other. Now that Diane and Audrey, now that Michael and Lloyd have given themselves to each other by solemn vows, with the joining of hands and the giving and receiving of rings, I pronounce they are joined together in the covenant of marriage. Those whom God has joined together, let no one, let no government, let no religious institution, let no person put asunder what is precious and holy and honorable in God's sight. Amen. I think a kiss is important.
They are kissing. They are kissing.
And they're still kissing.
And they ought to be, too. Well, folks, you are listening to a live broadcast of the very first gay and lesbian wedding in America on Hibernia Beach. When we return, we're going to be talking with Lloyd and Michael, Diane and Audrey, find out a little bit about who these people are, and hopefully we're going to be joined by Harry O here on Live 105.
Live 105 excludes others, the Mitsubishi Eclipse. But don't search the heavens for this eclipse. See your Northern California Mitsubishi Motors dealer today.
This is Hibernia Beach. Issues and entertainment from the gay, lesbian, bisexual perspective. Thanks for joining us for this special one-hour edition as we present America's first live radio broadcast of a gay and lesbian wedding.
And as we move back into this next half an hour, first I think we ought to thank Harry O.
Oh, yeah.
For giving us the time to expand to an hour.
Second half hour.
For this. Harry's going to hopefully be joining us. He's probably in the car listening right now on his way from Marin.
Woo.
What we want to do now, well, let's stop for a second.
I love it. I love it. I moved.
I didn't know how I was going to respond to this thing, you know?
love it. I love it. I mean, and just the looks on everyone's faces here in our audience, I mean, that was a really powerful thing, and Jim is absolutely right. Seeing that is a very powerful thing.
Well, we've got our two couples here sitting in front of us, and we figured we should start finding out a little bit about who these people are. And, you know, it's always so funny, particularly with radio, there's no visual.
Mm-hmm.
You leave it entirely up to your imagination who these people are. Okay, radio audience out there, what are these people like? What in your minds have you decided these people do for a living? One of them we talked to. Actually, let's start off with where we started with Audrey. What do you think Audrey does for a living? I'll bet you know, actually. Audrey, what do you do for a living?
No, first I wanted to say I'm tall, blonde, and skinny.
Absolutely. I hear laughter. I don't think there should be laughter at a moment like this. Audrey, what do you do for a living?
I'm an attorney.
An attorney, and that's why you were so instrumental, actually, in creating the legislation that we'll be talking about again a little later in the show. This is a process. It's like I came to you and we told you we were going to do a wedding, and you and Diane both had to talk about this a little. First, Diane, what do you do for a living?
I'm the president and CEO of a company that's doing analytical chemical instrumentation and analysis.
And what does that mean?
Well, we're both a little...
So we kind of look at each other and go...
Sort of imagine part of the business is a large chemistry lab like in a university, and the other part of the business is to develop instrumentation that's used for process control for semiconductor companies.
Okay, so Val, I guess we want to ask them the story. How did they get together?
Yeah, how did you get together? Well, how did you get together is a good question, because in your personal statements, I heard 10 years together, and I think that's I think that deserves a round of applause in and of itself.
it does deserve a round of applause. At the same time, it is more and more not unusual, and we need to be emphasizing that. So
how did you meet? First of all, I think that's a good.
We met in law school. Unfortunately, we're both lawyers. And at the time, I was telling this story earlier. I actually had an accident, and so I was disabled for a couple of years, and was walking. At the time, I think when we met, I had moved up to a cane. And one of the first things Diane made a comment to me, kiddingly, about calling me, she made a comment to me.
Yes, we do want to watch it now.
But she kind of stayed away from me when we first met, and
Audrey asked me to study with her after this class, and I couldn't understand why in the world I'd want to study with this group of people I didn't even know. So I said no.
Okay, let's get into the good stuff. Did you know you were both gay at the time?
No, I didn't. I was actually living with a man and had been for 9 years.
But I knew she was.
And let's face it, that's all that counts, isn't it? So how did it develop? How did you go from being friends to something?
Well, after
you got rid of your roommate,
several
Diane.
months. Oh no, I had a roommate.
Yeah, but
we don't need all the details here.
After several months of me asking her to study with me, which I had other ulterior motives. She actually thought we were going to study. I had no impression of that. She finally agreed, and then we moved from there, shall I say.
How long was the process before you realized, wow, this may be something special to me in my life?
Oh, 4 months?
Well, it's interesting because actually when I first met Audrey, almost immediately I felt that she knew me better than almost anybody else had. So I think there was something special right from the beginning. But it took a while for me to go through the process and acknowledge that.
And it's been 10 years now. Your little happy family living down on the peninsula. And I know because Audrey and I travel across the state together doing Life Lobby stuff. When we arrive home on the airplane, you're on the way to go to the barbecue with the guys next door. What's life like for two lesbians in the South Bay who have a kind of stable relationship? Is it any big deal? I mean, you got all kinds of neighbors around you. What's life like?
No, actually, within our neighborhood, we have probably about 6, 7 gay and lesbian couples that have been together many years. There's quite a. I know you find this hard to believe in San Francisco, but there is quite a good gay and lesbian community down on the peninsula. We have a very large community down there and very supportive.
Great. You've been together for 10 years. What made you decide to do your vows now?
That's a dirty question. Ken calling him on the phone saying, Audrey, come on.
No, but I mean, it's one thing to be asked. It's one thing to be asked,
That's
and it's
true.
another thing to actually say, it's...
Because we were looking in your eyes during it, and this wasn't let's get this done and go back to bed. You guys were serious. We could see that.
Yeah, we're serious. I think what really sort of put us over the edge to do it is that next month is our 10th anniversary, and we have talked a lot about what we wanted to do for that. And so this seemed a really good way to acknowledge that and feel a very significant part of that.
Right. We're talking with Audrey Covner and her partner, Diane Doherty.
And you're listening to Hibernia Beach on Live 105.
And, one thing we have almost totally ignored is the fact that tomorrow is Valentine's Day, and it seems like an appropriate way to celebrate Valentine's Day in the gay and lesbian community.
Well, is it, Lloyd and Michael? Let's talk to you guys for a little bit. What a way to do Valentine's, huh?
Indeed.
These guys are here in their tuxedos with the pink bow ties
and the gray polka dots. I love that. I've never seen it before.
Thank you for bringing the orchids. Now, we contacted Reverend Jim Mitulaski at MCC and said, could you come up with somebody who might be interested in this incredibly public way in participating in this? And there's something else that you guys are going to do tomorrow, because tomorrow when we have the press conference down at City Hall, you're actually going to register as domestic partners. Right. Let's go back in your history a little bit.
Right. We started out with what you do for a living. Michael, what do you do for a living?
I'm a physician. I'm an oncologist. Cancer specialist.
Here in the city?
Yes.
Great. And Lloyd?
I'm a telecommunications analyst.
And what does that mean?
Well, I install voice and data and local area networks, wide area networks for American President lines in Oakland.
Right. And in Oakland. So you're both living in San Francisco and whatnot. Now, I understand that that you all have had a union ceremony before. What caused you, I mean, I know that the radio show, obviously you're renewing your vows. Initially, what caused you to say, I want to do a ceremony?
Well, we met 5 years ago, and about 2 years after we met, we decided that we wanted to commit our lives to one another and to strengthen that bond and to publicly declare it to our friends and allow our friends to join with us to celebrate our union and our life together.
Were you members of MCC at the time?
Yes.
So you had probably had that role modeling of seeing other couples going through this kind of thing.
Correct.
I don't know about you, Jim, you're sitting back there. I have a feeling that makes a big difference. If so many gay people are used to kind of presuming that any kind of a recognition of a committed relationship is not available to us, so it doesn't even kind of occur to us. Whereas through your church, through what Rabbi Kahn does, you're in effect role modeling not just as individuals, but in those kind of symbols that you were talking about earlier that do make this an option for every person who's listening to us. I think that's so cool. I think that's so cool. Okay, guys. Domestic partners. What do you think you're going to get out of it by signing up as domestic partners? What's your understanding?
Well, first thing I know that we'll get is a reaffirmation of our commitment to each other, just as we've done today. Hopefully, there'll be some benefits that we'll be able to get from this, and be able to share a lot more, and to know that we're committed. So for that reason, it's important for us to register tomorrow.
Now, what's the exact story on you guys meeting? Where were you? How did it happen? I want the dirt, guys. Come on.
I thought this was live radio.
It is. It is.
We met at a party.
Period. We met at a party.
Yes.
Period.
And it was love at first sight.
It was. That's
Right.
kind of what I was going for.
Right.
Exactly.
So you guys kind of knew right away that this might be something special. And have you been together ever since?
Yes, it was an instant attraction, and that was 5 years ago, and we've been together ever since.
Once again, just want to point out to all our non-gay listeners out there, with these two couples, sounds awfully familiar, doesn't it? It's kind of like what you went through out there, isn't it? And yet we're still in a position where, for a reason that's unknown probably to everybody sitting here, you guys don't let us recognize those relationships. And hopefully we're in a period of change where that all might start changing. Harry, you back there? Not listening yet. Well, Harry O's come out into the studio. In a second, I want to get Harry in here to ask a couple of questions from his perspective as a non-gay fellow who views this kind of thing. Audrey, let's go back into a couple more of the details of the domestic partner side of this thing. As an attorney, how difficult is it to put this kind of legislation? I mean, you worked on this for a long time. I mean, years conceptually trying to figure out what, frankly, we could get passed, right?
Yeah, there are two other main attorneys that have been working on this with me as well, and we looked at what other ordinance has been passed throughout the state. When we go to the state legislature, if we can go and say, look, these other cities and counties around the state already have this, it's easier for them to bite into it because it's not like it's a totally new concept.
What are the chances of passage?
Very good. We're going to get this passed.
No problem.
It may not happen this year, but it's a process. It always takes time.
This is going to be a path, is what we're saying.
That's right.
This is going to be a chore, even though it doesn't even have any fiscal impact, and that was written into your legislation, as I understand, to assure that the Chamber of Commerce's would not have an immediate ability to veto.
Well, also, whenever there's a fiscal impact on any bill, it causes the legislature to get very nervous because our state budget is in such a, shall I say, disarray. And so there is no fiscal impact because the costs involved there will be a fee to register, and those fees will cover any costs that might be involved.
One of the fun things, as we said, this legislation does something else. It allows us to go to candidates, like all potential candidates for, say, the governor's race and the lieutenant governor's race, and allows us to actually focus them on a specific issue that they can't waffle on. We don't just say to them, what do you think about gay rights? And then they come through with some platitudes that then they turn around later on and knife us on. Let's face it, at least with Bill Clinton, we had a line that was drawn that he had to deal with, and that was gay in the military. What we're doing here in California is, in effect, creating exactly the same thing, right?
Yeah, although as I mentioned earlier, it is important to go to candidates and talk to them about that. But as I mentioned earlier, we went to Wilson and Diane Feinstein, Governor Wilson and Diane Feinstein, when they were both running for election to talk about AB 101. And we didn't get the kind of commitment from Governor Wilson we thought we were going to get from our previous discussions.
And we have no idea what to expect this time because, and this is something we're going to talk about in just a minute when we come back, what do you think the right wing's going to say about this in California?
Oh, they're going to be very happy.
Well, on that note, you're listening to Hibernia Beach on Live 105.
And we'll be right back with Harry O and more with our couples on Live 105.
Coming up, what a week for Live 105.
The car now! Real stories of the Highway Patrol.
Weeknights at 6:30 and 7 on Coffee TV 20, Cable 13.
This is Hibernia Beach. Issues and entertainment from the gay, lesbian, bisexual perspective. Thanks for joining us for this special one-hour edition as we present America's first live radio broadcast of a gay and lesbian wedding.
I'm Val Keenan.
I'm Ken MacPherson.
And yes, you are listening to the first live broadcast of a gay and lesbian wedding. And we've got our live studio audience. We haven't heard anything by them for a while.
Like we say, look out, Alex Bennett, look out. And joining us now is Harry O. Harry, first of all, we want to thank you very much for allowing us this extra half an hour, kind of intruding in on your time here.
No problem.
No problem. The ever-accommodating Harry O.
I should mention the Earth Beat will return next Sunday morning at 7:30.
At its regular time, that's right.
And the Green Hour, of course, at 8 this morning. But,
Harry, well, let me pick it up, and then you
Sure.
come on in any time you want.
Sure.
When I said, what's the right wing going to say, you said, oh, they're going to love it. Well, we're stirring up a hornet's nest, aren't we?
Oh, absolutely. We stir up a hornet's nest anytime we move into any kind of action. The right wing gets very upset. In fact, we don't even have to move and they get stirred up. When we had the hearings on AB 101 and 2601, it got very, I'll say, nasty. They came in full force, and it was not a pleasant place to be.
And they lie.
They
through
told
their
many
teeth.
untruths.
That's right.
Or their version of the truth.
I would interject that I don't know if I'm the token straight person here or
Yes,
not.
Harry, you are the token straight person here.
Okay, among other things. But I thought the crime was the big issue with the right wing and with everyone else. Governor Wilson had the crime summit in L.A. this week, and there's more than one issue out there.
Absolutely, and crime is a big issue, and crime is a big issue for the gay and lesbian community as well, because we are the victims of a lot of hate crimes. In fact, Governor Wilson had a dinner during the crime summit in which he invited a small number of people to come and sort of talk about that, and he actually called the Life Office and he asked for members of our community to be there and to participate in the discussion, which I thought was great. But crime is not a big issue for the right wing. That's not really something they're pushing on.
Because Democrats have co-opted it. They've got to look for those kind of things that they can put in their fundraising letters and make those big bucks off of.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think, Harry, we're really going to see, if anything, the governor, and let's face it, probably Catherine Brown and Garamendi, maybe Tom Hayden will come out on our side, because apparently he's even saying himself he doesn't take his candidacy so seriously right now. They're probably all going to try to avoid this like the plague, aren't they?
Oh, everybody always does. Every time there's a gay and lesbian issue, it always gets people want to stay clear, particularly when they're running for office, because it's a hot debate. And the right wing has a lot of money and a lot of pull.
Yet it seems that Ken was mentioning lies in the in the debate.
Lies, I said.
It also
Through
seems
their
that
teeth.
in the crime issue, for instance, as you say, there's incredible crime. directed against the gay community that's ignored in the debate. And it really seems that they're the same omissions, if you will. The conservative agenda just seems to be very selective in who gets what attention, and that they deal with half issues, partial issues.
Well, they deal, obviously, I'm not going to pretend to be anything other than biased, and any person from the other wing who wants to call us up and try to get on the show, we'll be glad to have you on the show, and we'll discuss your perspective here from a gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender perspective. We do on the microphone here. Thank you, Harry. I think one of the reasons that we're all here discussing domestic partners and relationships, one of the ways it relates to crime that you're talking about, is we are set off as people who can't have regular, recognized relationships. And what does that say to all those little kids out there who might turn in to those people who like to beat people up? It says, well, there's a group of people that you can go after.
And also there's the rhetoric about the breakdown of family values. And here we're establishing, if you will, family systems that are stable in an environment where the family is under attack.
Well, that's certainly one of the things we're going to be talking about in our campaign.
The other thing is that family is not just, mom, dad, and 2 kids. We all recognize that.
Headed by a white male.
Oh, of course. And that's what we need to look at, is that the definition of family has to be much broader. And that's come up. I was watching a Full House television show the other night, and somebody died on the show. And as you know, nobody in that show was related by blood, supposedly, on the characters. Yet they considered themselves, they were all sort of dealing with this death in the family by saying, we are a family, and we will help each other survive. And I sat there and I said, well, I won't tell you what I really said, but I said, you're not really a family according to somebody, but they are, and we are families, and that's important to have recognition of that.
And that's one of the messages. Go ahead, Harry.
Well, you didn't allow me to congratulate the couples.
Please.
and I want to do that, but also say that I heard the ceremony on the radio. I was arriving, and it sounded, I know it looked like a wedding, but it sounded like a wedding. It felt like a wedding. I heard the photographer, so I knew it was a wedding. So I just want to get that out of the way.
Yeah, you know what, Harry? It was a wedding. Thank you, Jane Cleland.
Yes.
And we also want to recognize that not every gay person wants to be married or wants to be a domestic partner. For example, I talked to one highly respected political activist and business person, Tom Nolan, the other day, and we were talking about marriage, and he put forward the position that I often hear and respect, that we don't need any piece of paper to justify our relationship. So, once again, I guess we're on the left, huh? Are we on the left?
Yeah. It's in this case with domestic partnership.
It's choice.
It's a choice, but it's not just a piece of paper. The problem is that we don't have these rights under the law unless we enact them, and unless we get a piece of paper that says we then can have those rights. And that's why it's even more important, not necessarily to have a ceremony, not necessarily to get a piece of paper, but to have the ability under the law to have domestic partnership, so that if we have that piece of paper, someone cannot take those rights away from us.
Harry, I've known you for about 4 years now, and I kind of think of you as kind of similar to me in politics, kind of the classic liberal, although we aren't supposed to use that word anymore. I don't know what we call ourselves anymore. What do you label yourself?
Smart, right?
Yeah, right on. Oh, there must have been some point in your life when you started hearing these gay folk out there talking about wanting to be married. Did you always from the very beginning say, oh yeah, sure? Or did you have to go through some sort of process?
No, it wasn't an immediate acceptance. But you see, I didn't get married for the first time till I was 43.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, when the debate started, I'm thinking, well, gee, how can these people want this arrangement when I don't have this arrangement because I'm not married? And then you look at how straight people have abused marriage, especially, I was in the Army, where guys would get married before they got drafted just so that they'd have an heir or a beneficiary on an insurance policy, or they would marry their girlfriend so that she would get a cut of their salary, things like that. All kinds of abuse by the straight community of this institution. So weighing all those factors, and then when I finally got married and have someone I really care about who's out of town this weekend, she would have come. But I can now see the hospital visitation, just the spiritual things, if you will.
Let me take it one step farther.
Are very important.
Because I know liberals who actually wouldn't necessarily agree on this, since you're our non-gay guinea pig for the day. What about marriage? Let's say in a year or so from now we get domestic partners. Well, over in Hawaii right now, the Supreme Court's going to be looking at marriage. Do you have any issues in terms of two same-sex people in your mind?
Not anymore. No.
What happened? What was the change?
My own marriage. I mean, my own being happy, if you will, in a domestic situation. And I can't deny that to any adults of goodwill and the whole 9 yards. I mean, and also you have to be willing to throw out some old traditions. And a lot of the traditions that we have in this country are based upon a patriarchal, Christian-only, white-only kind of system that, at the very least, needs some tinkering with.
You're less myopic than I am because you let's hear it. While you're out there in the heterosexual world, you're also a person of color, so you hear of things from a different vantage point than we do. What do you think that those folks out there are do you think California's ready for domestic partners? From your reading of the winds?
I don't know. I would say probably urban California. All of us who live on the coast, probably yes, but you get into the interior, maybe not.
Yeah. Audrey?
What about Orange County?
Yeah, we were just down in Orange County last week, though, and I was surprised what an incredibly good job the gay community is doing.
Yeah, but I don't think the straight community down there is ready for domestic partnership.
Yeah, and I don't think they are in Butte County and Fresno and Bakersfield and a lot of places. Okay, Audrey, back to you. So how are we going to sell this thing? She laughs as though, Ken, that's your job.
No, it's all of our jobs.
Yeah,
it is
right.
all of our jobs to sell it. And part of our sell is to educate people. I mean, I think what Harry was saying is that he was educated and he recognized that, it's just a matter of being who we are. And we are going to start with educating our legislators, and then we are going to ask people in their local communities to go and visit their legislators and educate them some more.
And one of the things I want to point in here, look, one of the reasons we lost gay in the military, folks, point blank, it's because most of you didn't support gay in the military because you said, I don't really care about the military, so you sat it out, and that's one of the big reasons we lost this thing. Look, even if you don't want to get married, even if you don't care about domestic partners, how about doing it for everyone else out there? Because someday you may want a favor returned in terms of your political agenda. If we start building this coalition that supposedly we talk about, we may all do something good for each other.
But actually, we do sense that there is support from the gay and lesbian community. Before we put ourselves on the line to submit this bill, we went out across the state and talked to people all across the state about how they felt about this. And our Life Lobby is made up of almost 100 organizations that are statewide. So it's not like, 5 or 6 of us got together and said, oh, let's just do domestic partnership. It's coming from representatives throughout the state.
Well, we are coming to the end of this hour of this very special edition. Isn't that what they supposedly say on broadcast shows when they do something a little different? I don't know. I kind of want to do last comments, whatever's in your brain right now from all 4 of you. So quick. You have a one-liner you're about to say. Get it in your brain. The women are pointing down to the guys. So let's start down there. Go ahead.
Well, I think this legislation is really important because if I was in the hospital or sick, I would want Lloyd to be there with me, and I would not want him to be restricted by somebody who didn't recognize who he was or what part of my life he means to me. So I think the legislation is important for that, as well as the other aspects of it as well, too, in terms of willing property. And should something happen to me and I not be able to take care of myself, I would want him to be able to take care of my affairs for me and take care of me.
Lloyd?
I reaffirm that totally. One of the other things that a lot of families come into homes of their children after a partner has passed away and literally take over and take away a home or an inheritance or whatever from another domestic partner. And I think this legislation will hopefully prevent that from happening.
Diane?
Well, I think in some ways it's sorry we even have to talk about these issues because they seem so matter of fact and clear to all of us here, but I think they are important. I think I've learned over the years that political action and working through the system is really the way to help enact change.
And Audrey.
I've been writing this and been so intimately involved in working on it that I sometimes have lost track of the bigger picture, and today was a wonderful experience for me to do that, and the ceremony really helped put that in perspective for me and to feel the support around.
Great. Well, we thank all of you for being here this morning, and our studio audience.
We want to thank our very first studio audience.
That's right. And we'll see you next week here on Live 105.
This has been a special one-hour edition of Hibernia Beach, issues and entertainment from the lesbian, gay, bisexual perspective, live on Live 105. Hibernia Beach is produced by Ken MacPherson and Val Keenan. Associate producer is Larry Adams. Special thanks for this week's program go to Audry Covner, Diane Doherty, Lloyd Burton, Michael Berry, Reverend Jim Mitulaski of the Metropolitan Community Church, Harry O, and Live 105. Tune in next week at 7 as Val Keenan will explore the gay music scene, including interviews with Pansy Division and Pale. Coming up next, join Harry O for the Green Hour on KITS San Francisco. Live 105.